Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Roll Call. I'm your host, Joseph Giacalone for True Crime with the Sarge. And for those that don't know what roll call is, roll call happens in the beginning of a tour where the police officers are given their assignments for the day. They assign their cars to them and everything else. Not every police department does a standing roll call anymore, but many of them still do. And if you are interested in about a pop culture one, no better than Hill Street Blues. Remember the famous saying, "Be careful out there," right? So that's what the roll call is all about. I have with us everybody's favorite retired NYPD detective, Michael Alcazar. Good morning, Mike. Thanks for coming on today to Roll Call.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, everybody.
So I guess later on, Mike, people are going to ask for a story. So just get one into your head now. So you can figure now, if you start thinking about it, by the time we get there, you could give everybody your roll call story per se. But some interesting news. We'll just touch on this briefly. So the Karen Reed trial up in Massachusetts starts today. That one is a very contentious trial. It's going to be really interesting to see how this thing goes. There are so many people that have been fighting over this viciously online, and staying out of that fray. And then you also have the big news, which I was finally happy about, and that was the news that Adam Montgomery, who was convicted of killing his 5-year-old daughter Harmony, is being forced to show up for sentencing. And for those that might not remember, he didn't show up for any of his trial. His lawyers put a motion in for him to not show up, and now he's being forced to come in. Mike, what's your take on that one?
I think it's good. It's good for the family of the victim that this guy is in trial. I think he's a psychopath anyway. I don't think he cares either way. He probably has no emotions, but it's good that they're making him face the music. Maybe some closure. Maybe when he's convicted, maybe the family can say something to him. That's huge for the family. It's a big part of the trial process.
I think there's going to be some fireworks getting him there, right? He's gonna be held up in his cell. I think there's going to be a big brawl. I don't think he's going to go quietly into the good night, so to speak. I think it's going to be a major action, and they're gonna have to tear him out of there.
Really?
Yeah, I
Now, if
think that's
that's
where
the
it's headed.
case, if that's the case, how would they keep him? How would it keep him civil in the courtroom?
Well, we've seen it before where they would actually put basically like a gag, one of those face masks on him. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this, right? Because he fought vehemently not to go, and they just and there was a couple of stories, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure if I'm wrong, there'll be people that will correct me, but that he stuffed himself in the cell and said he wasn't coming out, and he was basically saying, "You're gonna have to come and get me." So
Hmm.
I think there is a good possibility that we're going to see that behavior continue specifically for
Hmm.
that morning. So I don't know exactly what's going to transpire. Listen, there's always, Mike, just remember in policing, I always said, there's easy ways and the hard way. The easy way is if you just comply, we put the cuffs
Yeah.
on you, we take you to the hospital, we take you to prison. If you want to do it your way, then it's going to be a brawl, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be a mess, and you're going to get extra charges, and it's not worth it. But he's already looking at life, I think, anyway, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that could be part of the issue. But I don't know. I mean, getting them out of I've seen corrections officers try to pull somebody out of the cell. It isn't pretty.
I would be in for the Hannibal Lecter
Mask.
treatment. That would be entertaining.
Well, specifically if he was going to be shouting or whatever. I mean, they can't be
Yeah.
disrupting the court. So it's I know. Listen, I am very glad that the judge is forcing him to show up and face the music, but it's going to be a circus for sure.
Yeah.
And we don't want to lose sight of Harmony. The police still haven't found her remains yet, or what's left of her. I mean, this guy did some unbelievable, awful things to her,
Yeah.
and I think that we need to put the focus back on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if he becomes such a disruption in the courtroom, they might have to remove him. I know people want him there, but if he's going to act like an animal that he is, it's probably best not to, like you said, lose focus on Harmony
Yeah,
and the
I
family.
still go back to the presser where basically the police chief kind of gave the green light, and I say kind of, but the weather is warming up now. up north, and
Mm.
they, I think the searches will start commencing if they haven't started already. I haven't really seen anything before we got on the show today. I looked to see if there was any search parties organized or anything like that. But one thing about search parties, we never had volunteers in New York City because we had so many people. But when you go to some of these smaller departments, they need volunteers and they need a way to corral like who these people are, where they're going, because we don't want to see any evidence get trampled on or messed up per se.
Yeah, and that's a lot of elimination DNA too, right? If you're getting all these volunteers and they're walking around with their clothing and their
Yeah.
footprints and their DNA and fibers, that's a big undertaking for sure.
Yeah, and well, yeah, specifically if the case wasn't already. I mean, we have a convicted person on this, so that's not going to really be an issue there. But in other cases where you're looking for somebody that you can't find, so if, like, for instance, we're going to talk about this case in a little while, the Sade Robinson case. There's still, unfortunately, parts of her remains that haven't been found, and there are people searching for them. But we're going to get all into that later on. So Adam Montgomery's going to be forced to show up in court, and good, because we want to see this guy and we want to see him face the music, and maybe they can do some of the victim impact statements then,
Yeah,
because they didn't get a chance to at trial.
yeah.
So we'll see exactly what happens there. So Gizla has entered the chat. Thank you, Gizla, for showing up here this morning from Grizzly True Crime and all the Grizzlies that come and support this channel. Thank you very much. So let's talk. Let's just switch before we get into some of the big cases. This guy, Max Azzarello from New York City, who lit himself on fire, I guess in protest at the Trump trial, right? We're not going to get into the politics per se. What I want to get into is security, right? Here you have this huge trial happening right now with a former president, and to see this guy be able to come in with I guess he had I don't even know what they specified. Have you heard what the liquid was used? I'm assuming gasoline. I mean,
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything, but it must have been a lot of fuel. I mean, he set himself on fire, and it was a big plume of smoke and
yeah,
fire like that. Did he carry like a big jug of, gasoline? How did he do this?
right. Well, and that's my concern for the security around this place, right? Because we don't want to see anything really bad happen to the bystanders who are in the press corps that are out there on the street corners, filming this thing. Nothing's going to happen inside the courtroom, but I worry about the people on the outside, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, not just the press, everybody that's interested, right? There's
yeah,
pro-Trump people there, there's anti-Trump people there.
yeah,
I see them corralling him with the barriers, and this guy just seemed to walk in willy-nilly. It seems like it doesn't bode well for the NYPD and their security measures. It was a civilian that actually alerted everybody that watched this guy dousing
yep,
himself. I hate the Monday morning quarterback, our brothers and sisters, but how did this happen?
yeah.
Some captains, some inspectors answering up to that, and it's got to be on video surveillance. Like this guy probably walked by cops and civilians. It's just
Well,
bad. It's just a bad
the,
look all around.
the odds of that happening are pretty high. I think there's a lot of police presence there. And you know as well as I do, Mike, we've done these kind of details, and it's sometimes they're a little chaotic. And you know what?
Yeah,
If people are chanting and people are doing that, or fighting back and forth, yelling and screaming at each other, you kind of get lost in the whole, the whole moment. You can't really hear things or do things, or sometimes people just slip by in the chaos. And I think that's what happened here. And we're not Monday morning quarterbacking what the cops did or didn't do. It's just that it's unfortunate, but you have to be mindful now because of all the things that are happening between the Israeli and the Palestinian stuff. That's
sure.
this craziness that's happening. You don't want to
Yeah,
see somebody really take an opportunity and do something horrific, and that's what we're,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Thank God this guy just lit himself on fire. If this guy was able to secrete that into the outer perimeter, imagine somebody with like a high capacity weapon. It could have been really worse, really really worse. So scary
and,
for sure.
and I think you're going to see a little bit more of the heavily armed security people there, and I think you're going to see some tighter restrictions of people entering certain areas for sure after this incident. Because just the other day, the mayor, Eric Adams, was doing in-person meeting. It was in an auditorium, and like 5 people rushed the stage, and they were holding banners up and this and that. I mean, listen, it ended okay because it was just they just wanted to make a statement. But Mike, I mean, it's absolutely crazy that people can get this close to your elected officials, and he's not well liked. I mean, you just saw his polls lately. He's not well liked about what's going on between what's happening in New York City, and you just don't want to see anything bad happen. And of course, seeing collateral damage on top of it. But it's just I just need to see a little more. I guess tighter control. That's what I'd like to see about some of these meetings and events.
Yeah, it would seem that he may not have the right people in place to take care of his security. He's been accused of nepotism, so he might be hooking up people that he knows. But listen, you need qualified people. If I was the mayor or if I was the commissioner, I want protection. I don't want people coming up behind me and doing crazy things, especially when you're not, well liked as it seems. So he's going to have to revisit that. That security is top priority in New York City.
Right. And you have a battle brewing all over New York City between the Palestinian supporters and the Israeli supporters. So, I mean, it's almost as if we're saying like we're having these mini battles and mini
Oh yeah.
wars that are happening. And Mike, the warm weather's coming, right? We have all the parades happening. I mean, they better be on their A game this summer because we don't
100%.
want to see, we don't want to see like the guy on the West Side Highway that drove the truck down and hit all those runners. I mean, I want to see those garbage trucks again. I want to see, some sandbags that were put up and barriers. I mean, this is getting nutty.
Yeah, they definitely have to take control of security. They have to be over the top just in case something like this pops off. You got Trump, you got the Palestinians and the Israel, you got migrants running around. I don't envy his job. I don't envy the job of our police officers. It's definitely a big undertaking. Believe me, we were both there. We've done it. We know what it entails. And I think it boils down to leadership. So, you got to figure out, got to put the right people in place to protect New York City.
And sometimes that requires change of personnel. I mean, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we see a change in personnel about who's in charge of specific, event coordinating, because we
Yeah.
can't let something terrible happen to the
Yeah.
visitors and the people in New York City. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. They kind of like sweep everything under the rug. We'll see if they're going to make some changes. And I'm sure if they do, they're going to make a big announcement about it. I don't know if they're going to blame anybody, but somebody dropped the ball.
Yeah, well, the mayor put out a big thread in Twitter yesterday about basically that things are just getting basically out of control, and of course everybody just piled on the ball carrier, so to speak. But all right, enough of Manhattan, New York, the mayor stuff. But just I hope they get that straightened out and they get it straightened out soon. Let's jump into the Sade Robinson case from up in Milwaukee. I mean, this is another dismemberment case, right? So we're just dealing with the last dismemberment case that we haven't heard the end of on Long Island, right? Mike, I don't know if it's me, but I've never seen this many dismemberment cases in a short. I mean, listen, we had a couple in the Bronx from the 80s and 90s, but I don't remember like seeing this kind of MO recently in regards to it. I don't understand that thing. But let's get into this poor young woman. She's 19 years old, and my heart goes out to her family, her mother, and the family and friends. I mean, my God, this is like devastating if you see something like this. This poor young girl who meets this guy on a date, right? So this guy, his name is also Max, right? I've never met a Max in my entire life, and we have two of them in the news doing some stuff here. So this monster, that's the only word I can describe him, because I don't really curse much and I'm not going to stop, but this guy's a monster. He's 33 years old and they go on a date, and for all intents and purposes, Mike, she does what you're supposed to do, like on a first date. She meets him at the restaurant, right? So she doesn't, there's no like, because that's like, dating 101, right? When you're worried about, meeting somebody for the first time, they always tell you meet in a in a place where it's a public place and everybody knows everything. But things just go terribly bad for her after this. I mean, my God.
Yeah, absolutely. She didn't do anything wrong. She met him in public. Lots of people saw them together. I think she told friends about it. Friends at her job knew about it. And I don't know if this was something that just happened. Maybe this guy didn't plan it, or he's just a psychopath that's just motivated by the moment. But I do feel very bad for her and the family. This poor kid, 19, and this psychopath. Uh, yeah, we'll discuss.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at 33 years old, I just find it odd that this is the first time he's entered into this foray, right? I mean, never say never, never say always, right? It could be, but I find it strange. Like I said, I would be. I can imagine right now, Mike, if we were back in the squad and this was our area, we'd be getting a call from downtown saying you pull out every missing persons case, you pull out every homicide, you pull out every sexual assault, you pull out everything and see if anything matches, right? Does anything match this MO? Did we have any reports of an unknown male matching this description? I mean, he's pretty tall, he's male white, he's got this long hair. I mean, there's all kinds of things. And he's got minor criminal record, right? He's got some little things,
Yeah.
but there was one thing in his record that I found interesting, and that was he was confronted on the street. It looks like because he was having an argument with a woman, and it seems as if somebody intervened, and then he punches the guy. So
Mm.
yeah, that doesn't make you a murderer and a dismemberer and everything else, but to say this was the first time this guy has acted out against women, I think would be a gross misunderstanding of what this guy could be potentially capable of.
Yeah, 100%. This is exactly where we would employ our homicide units, or maybe even create a task force to try to identify any kind of patterns of history with this perp, any crime, anything we can link him to, any missing person, any previous sexual assaults that we can link him to. You're right. He's 33. I mean, listen, we got Kohberger, right? They're saying that's his first time. I still didn't believe it. I still don't believe it, but and we'll talk about that later. But
Yeah, it
you definitely
happens.
got to do your due diligence as an investigator to rule out any other potential victims in the past involving this guy.
Yeah, one thing that I didn't do when I should have, because I just thought of it now. Like I was it was just on court TV a little while ago preparing for this, and then as we were talking about this, Mike, and looking for companion cases, right? Because those cases can hold clues to what what you're dealing with now. But one thing I didn't look for is if if Milwaukee or the state has a DNA policy about taking DNA from somebody upon arrest or upon
Mm,
conviction, because and if it's based on conviction, I still think they can make an argument here about getting his DNA to get it into CODIS, right? The combined DNA index system for those people watching. Here's a future quiz question, everybody. So there's two indexes or main indexes in CODIS. Basically, it's the known or unknown, or it's really the names are the offender and the forensic. And the forensic database is the one that we'd be looking for. The forensic database is the one that has DNA from crime scenes where we don't know who the perp was, because this guy apparently doesn't have any felony convictions on his thing, so he would have never had a DNA sample taken. And that's where, I mean, if somebody is in here in the chat and they could look it up to see if Milwaukee or the state requires DNA upon arrest or conviction, because it's basically up to the jurisdiction. What do you think about that, Mike?
well, they definitely have his DNA now. And again, they'll probably doing a check on other cases that they have unsolved, that they have potential DNA evidence. They'll definitely try to link that to this perp. So that's a good thing. But yeah, you're right. Nationally, we should have some kind of a program where we just, gather DNA. It shouldn't be, based on the police department or locality. It should be something we do blanket throughout the nation so that we can help solve cases, because it's not unusual for a perp to commit crimes in different localities. So it's
Right.
definitely, it's a good program that we should start.
I just got my answer already from Rob, our favorite catch list, Raul Montero.
Roll.
Wisconsin Act 2013, and Wisconsin Act 214 created the requirement of DNA collection. Adults and juveniles arrested for a violent crime arrested. So there it is. That's the answer I was looking for. So that means they have his DNA already, and they have. I would imagine that it's already been submitted to the FBI who runs CODIS, right? But here's where the other thing about DNA, right? You start at the state database. Every state has their own database. You start at the state database first because generally your perps are local before you go to the national database. So they start at the state, then they'll go to the feds if they strike out there. Because everywhere this guy has ever lived, worked, laid his head, played in a sandbox, I want to know where it was and if there's any and what cases are still open over there that could be matched up to this thing.
Yeah, it's going to be daunting too, right? They're going to process the crime scene, his house, anything in his car, her car. So I'm curious to see what they uncover when they go through his property. What information, what evidence, what tools he had in there. So that could reveal a lot of things.
There was some information that there was blood on the walls heading down to the basement, and there was also allegations about the basement that this guy was doing some, weird things in there with, women. I'm not going to start mentioning these names because YouTube will have this banned in a matter of no time. But right now, I don't think that's an official answer anyway. But yeah, they're going to be tearing that house apart, that basement specifically. And he had her car. He was driving her car at the end. So once again, Mike, the forensic horseman, cell phone records, video surveillance, and I guarantee you they've got internet records on this thing too, because they have that whole shebang so far. They have the videos of him leaving the house, showing him, after certain hours, and internet records for sure, because apparently Sade sent a Snap message. I guess that's a Snapchat thing. I'm not familiar with Snap. But she sent a message to her friend from the bar, which could have, we don't know what's on that message, but I'm going to speculate or assume that it's like saying, hey, I'm at the bar, everything's going fine, and I'm going to go to his house. I think that probably is it, because this kind of broke the case in regards to when the missing persons report came out, right? She was reported missing, I believe, by a family, not a family member, a friend who said that she didn't show up for work.
Yeah, coworker. Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this poor kid did everything right. She's notifying people, what kid doesn't post on social media, and then just turned for the worse when she got to this guy's residence. So,
yeah, and the other interesting part of this is that a lot of times the police unfairly get beaten up for lack of effort in missing persons cases, but this one seems to be right on. I think she disappears. We don't hear from her. She goes on this date. I think it was April 1st. And by April 4th, I think it is, they made the arrest. And one of the big tips they got was when they did what they're supposed to do, right? They interview friends and family. And this coworker probably was the one that helped them because they're the one that reported her missing and said, maybe she's the one that said, I got the Snap message that she went on her first date, because I'm sure that was the theme. She went on a date on April 1st and we haven't seen her since. And that's what raised that red 100%. Flag for the police.
Yep. And kudos to the friends and family members that helped identify him. And, this guy was sloppy. I mean, he left a lot of evidence. So, good job by the police department, and they made the arrest quickly. Again, sloppy.
And I've said this before, Mike, he gets her car and she's got clothing in it and everything else, and he sets it on fire. I mean, why do perps do this? I don't know. I mean, I know why they think they do it, right? To try to destroy evidence. But when you set a fire, the fire department and the police are coming in minutes. Yeah. And if they put it out in time, all that evidence is still going to remain. And it does, right? Because the police say that there were her clothing in there. There was some other personal items in there. It's just mind-boggling how stupid people are.
And again, we rely on that, right? We rely on the bad guys to be really dumb and to make stupid mistakes. I mean, everything on this planet's on video. Everything's on video. Everything's on cell phones. Everything. I don't know if this guy, again, you mentioned before about dismembering the body. Could it possibly be that social media, the news, is influencing these perpetrators? They saw what happened in Long Island and how long it took to solve that. Maybe
it's
just
still not solved.
And still not solved. Exactly. So hopefully that's not the case, but I feel like the news and social media has some kind of influence on bad people, and they're thinking, hey, this guy got away with it, maybe I'll get away with it. So
Just remind me about a point about social media. I just want to make a quick announcement. We're 25 minutes into roll call. With us is retired detective Mike Alcazar. If you could please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, I appreciate that. We're closing in on 200 people watching live, so that's phenomenal. Thank you guys for showing up this early in the morning. This was unfortunately a little bit later. We usually do roll call at 8 a.m., but I was on court TV, so that was the reason why we had a 30-minute delay. Let's get back to that to the social media part, Mike. Because unlike because we're old, we didn't have social media as part of our investigations. But when I was Googling and getting prepared for the show, I put it in. I was looking for her internet records, her social media stuff. I wasn't able to find it because there's so many Sade Robinsons. However, I did find hundreds, if not thousands, of posts looking for her, putting her face out there, her name, right? So we're seeing this huge push using things like Instagram and X, right, formerly Twitter, to put out missing persons cases and posters. And I know Light the Way, who was on my show, does a missing poster Monday hashtag to share these things. And it's amazing what happens when people who want to get involved. You can do something as simple as posting something about a specific person who's missing, and I think that was awesome.
Yeah, back in the day before, without social media, we relied on what? Getting video surveillance, developing skills, making posters and handing them out. The way of Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, it's instant, right? Faces are out there, people are looking, so it's definitely a benefit of social media and the true crime community. It's definitely very helpful, especially with smaller agencies that just don't have the money or the units to handle a volume of distributing information that quickly.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome tool, and I want to see every police department getting involved in using this and basically talking to the kids. I mean, people say, like, how do they, and you're doing investigations. I mean, Mike, even though we're old, I think we would be pretty progressive in this area because we understand, because we teach, how important this social media is to the kids, and those are the ones that have the information in the neighborhoods, and they do all these things that go on, and they know what's going on, and know the rumors. People think like rumors aren't good for policing. That's what you kind of live for, those rumors, because those are the rumors that you now could try to see if it fits into the information and the evidence that you find, because it could give you a starting point when you have none.
Yeah, it's just a matter of vetting that information if it's good. And as our students don't really watch the news, but they live off their phone. They get all their notifications on their Instagram accounts. Maybe not Facebook, because apparently Facebook is for us older folks. But
yeah,
TikTok,
Granny's
Snap,
on it, so it's Granny's on Facebook, so it's not cool anymore.
I didn't even know that. I love Facebook, but then I'm old, so. But yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, that's where they get all their information, and boom, it's there. Mm-hmm. And it's something they can work with. And us as law enforcement, we have to embrace that technology as something definitely very valuable. It's not going away. It's not going away.
Yeah. So the next things I want to see in this case, because the sheriff, I believe it was a female sheriff in Milwaukee, said that, right now there are, I think I wrote down the quote. I thought I wrote down the quote. Oh, yeah, here it is. No other evidence that there are other victims. This is in regards to Sade Robinson and the perp. I'm not even going to mention his name anymore. This piece of garbage. But that's still insight. I always tell people, when you're watching these presses, watch what the police say and what they're not saying. And this is a prime example. It means they're looking for other cases. I mean, basically saying right now, nothing else adds up. But
so far,
looking,
yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of, I was glad that she said what she said, even though some dismissed it, saying, okay, no other cases. No, that's not what she's saying. She's saying, we're looking. And I think that's an important aspect of this. And you want to make sure that it gets done.
And it should
I don't
be done.
know. Yeah, it should be. And I don't know. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes with police departments, right, Mike, they don't want to look too much further because maybe they find cases that they didn't have reported before. And that's been an allegation a lot, right? You say, the more you look, if you're looking for human remains, you might find them. And now we have other cases that we didn't have before. And kind of like the allegation against Suffolk County in the Long Island serial killer case, right? Questioning when they were searching, why they were searching, all those other things. is really a terrible thing. But hey, listen, it's a real problem sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It might uncover some controversy in that department, like Suffolk County. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the next things I want to see with this case is we're going to find out hopefully about this. I think he's getting arraigned today. I think he's going to. I think he's making his first court appearance, or he made his first court appearance, but I think he's back in court today. Um, I want to hear about his cell phone records, his Google searches, all the things that go on, because I think we some of us might be surprised, others like myself won't be surprised, but it's just something that we want to see investigations go down that path.
Yeah, every electronic records, his purchases. What did he buy recently, or perhaps that day? It's going to be all again for the trial. So good stuff.
Yes. Hope 8 Fear said yes today, so yeah, he has another court appearance today. So say no to globalism. Here's your coffee. Good morning. Say no. Hello to everybody in the room. Sorry, we're over 200 people now, Mike. Well over 200
nice.
people. So that's good, and I know they're all here to see you. And not so much to see me, which is fine, because that's why we bring you
That's
on
not.
here.
That's
Everybody's favorite.
That's not true. They're here. I'm just the color commentator. Yeah, you give the
You had to go there.
facts.
You had to go there. So, any final thoughts on the investigation with the Sade Robinson? Anything you want to hear or see coming up from either today's court or about what's happening in the case?
They're not really talking much about evidence, so I'm curious to see what kind of evidence they recovered. Everything evidence, and I'm sure it's him. This guy wasn't a master criminal genius, so I think it's going to be a pretty solid case. And again, the police department did a very good job. So hopefully they bring closure and they recover, Sade's body very soon. I heard they got boats with sonar in the water, so. It'll be. I watched that poor mother on the press conference, and my heart hurts for her. I can only imagine. Your baby is missing, and it's tragic for sure.
Yeah.
Monsters are real, folks. So protect your children. And I'm not victim blaming at all, but make sure you drill into their heads to be very careful, not to trust anybody. Don't go into strange homes. I hate that we have to say that, but we have to. So protect the kids, protect our families.
Yeah, it's an awful case, and it's just like you said, for all intents and purposes, what made this guy, do this is something that we need to find out, because he's 33, she's 19. That's a pretty wide gap there too. And then there needs to be, like I said, I want to see what else this guy was involved with. I'm not buying it that he's got minor brushes with the law. I'm just not buying it. But that's just my suspicious nature. I'm always a little suspicious when it comes to these things. And unfortunately, the last 20 something years prior to the last 10 years, whatever, was based on just those suspicions, and it's tough to shake. And it's craziness.
It's good.
It's absolutely
It's
craziness.
good. It's good to be suspicious. It's good to be suspicious.
There was so they had some candlelight vigils. They set up balloons because pink's their favorite color. So the family and the friends are really getting behind this. They're wanting justice. They're wanting to do this. So yeah, Buttercup asked, has he said anything? The police have not mentioned any. If they can, if they interrogated him, if there was any confessions, if there was anything that was going on with that. We don't know. We know that his family has made a statement, but I'm sure that statement was written by their lawyer. I'm sure it wasn't written by them, because they can't implicate their son in anything or say anything like that, because that would be, not good for his case. So the issue that comes down to is, it is what it is when it comes to those statements. Final thoughts, Mike, on Sade Robinson's case. We were talking about it, and I kind of cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's it. Just waiting for the evidence. Hopefully they recover the rest of her remains, and it'd be great if this guy made a confession. Wouldn't that be icing on the cake, just to see why he did it? his mindset. Was it planned? Did he panic? Who knows? But, it'd be very interesting.
Well, they might need his assistance to find the rest of the remains, right? I believe, well, the torso was found. I believe a leg was found,
Yeah.
and they're missing the skull. So maybe
Horrific.
that
It's just horrific. Oh my God.
maybe he can help put the family at ease, because a mother and the family member did say that they want to have her all together. That was the exact words that were used,
Yeah. Yeah.
for proper burial so she can rest. I mean, that's something that let's hope that that law enforcement can get to that point with this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's switch gears to another contentious case. Bryan Kohberger's heating up
Oh
in
yeah.
Idaho. I had a great show last night. I didn't realize so many Bryan Kohberger fans are out there. And we're not talking about guilt or innocence. We break down the case as we see it, specifically like his alibi. I said it yesterday publicly. His alibi sucks. I mean, we waited all this time just to hear that he likes to go out at night and stargaze and stuff like that. Okay. He likes to go out at night and throw garbage in the pails too, apparently, in Pennsylvania in the middle of the night, where the state police kind of captured that garbage out of the pail. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about that this whole case is going to come down to the electronic evidence. It's going to come down to the DNA evidence, and it's going to come down to the defense trying to figure out how they can get his DNA out of the crime scene. His car, or not his car, I shouldn't say that, right? A vehicle matching his car, a white vehicle with no front plate, is seen in and around the crime scene all hours of the night. And I think the biggest thing that the defense has against him is the cell phone either being not on, being turned off, or being not able to connect to the towers, right? Those are like the three big things that that the defense has to do. But Mike, I've been saying this all along. I mean, yeah, that's fine. But for me, if I was the defense, I'd be fighting or arguing how bad the crime scene was handled. I mean, that's, to me, is where the meat and potatoes are, because that's the only way you're going to get rid of that DNA, is if you can prove how bad the crime scene was handled.
Yeah, the defense is definitely doing a good job what they're releasing to the news, because it's definitely putting doubt in people's minds, right? And that's their whole job, is to put doubt. And they're definitely, it seems like they're, poking holes at the prosecution. And we'll see. Again, we don't know really everything that the prosecution has.
Because of the gag order.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, it's crazy how much people are supporting him. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's people probably falling in love with Bryan Kohberger, right? So,
I'm sure he's got marriage proposals already. I can almost guarantee that. But the issue that comes down to is the defense can come out and say anything they want. The prosecutor can't.
right.
There is a gag order. There was a whole bunch of things that have happened in this case that just make everything bizarre. And of course, everything becomes a conspiracy. Listen, I tell people, I was accused of gaslighting people yesterday on this stuff. I'm like, go back to the original case. When this case first broke, I was on News Nation. I was on a couple of things, and I said right off the bat what was wrong with this case. So I tell people, do your homework first before you come at me. If we want to talk about alibis, I mean, this ain't it. And you know what? Not for nothing. This alibi doesn't fit what the court requires, and that court requires an eyewitness. And people are saying, well, now the expert's going to be the eyewitness. No, that doesn't work that way. Eyewitness means eyewitness, not a technical witness. So I want to see how that comes out, how that plays out, because Idaho is a state that uses the federal rules of evidence. It's not a Daubert state. It's not a rule state. It's not a Frye state, like New York is a Frye state, which means who could be let in for, to be an expert witness. So this is a federal rules state. So it's interesting because, it's to see how experts are going to fight over the cell phone technology is to me is where it's at.
Yeah, I was thinking about that with the cell phone and how it turns off at the presumed time that these victims were killed. They're probably going to establish, like, has Bryan Kohberger, does he normally shut off his phone at a certain time? Because I know I never shut off my phone.
Yeah,
And what a
neither do I.
what a coincidence it would be if it just at this time it goes off. That's huge.
Yeah.
Very telling. I mean, does it prove the case? Probably not, but it's definitely a piece in the puzzle, right? Because I mean, I'm a homebody. I'm home all the time. I don't know how much of an alibi I would have other than my girlfriend living with me. I don't really go out. I just stay at home. Yesterday I checked our door alarm, when you stay home, it was on all day. I was like, wow, we didn't go out at all. So, I would have a
I,
horrible alibi.
and I'll tell you, I always make fun of people who say, like, when what's your alibi? I was home watching TV. Well, Mike,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like you in that respect. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife and I, we're pretty much homebodies too. We don't really travel out much, especially after the COVID stuff, right? I mean, you're kind of conditioned
Sure.
to stay. But historically, I've always been a person to try to stay away from as many people as possible. Anyway, so and it has served me well in 55 years. That's for sure. So. Because the less people you interact with, the less idiots you have to deal with. I mean, that's just basically my philosophy on life. But yeah, so listen, we're all in that same boat. But yeah, good luck trying to say that we didn't do nothing. But like once again, you said something specifically. Yeah, you're a homebody and you don't turn your phone off, so your phone is right with you the entire time. This thing, or even this watch, I call the snitch on your wrist. I mean, tells a lot of information about your whereabouts and what you were doing, what you were moving. If we, every now and then I get the, the message and saying like, "Are you dead? Like you didn't move, you haven't gotten up in the last 2 hours off your butt. Let's do something." So it's an important aspect, and this is where the battle is going to be. The battle is going to be between this tech. His name is Cy Ray, I believe, who had some issues in a Colorado case. So it's going to be interesting to see if that affects him with the federal rules of evidence. We like to get a lawyer in here and explain the federal rules. If Defense Diaries is in here, just let me know. But the federal rules are going to be just that, about who can testify and what they can testify about. And if you're found unreliable in one state, does that carry over to another state? I don't know, right? These are the things that are going to be answered.
Why do they have to use this guy? Can't they get somebody else?
I don't know. This guy seems to be like the guy, right? He seems to be like the guy. He created this program that he sold to LexisNexis. So he's a super intelligent guy when it comes to all this stuff. It's just that he had a big problem with a judge in Colorado, and how that carries over. I think the prosecution is already preparing, their argument against this guy for that reason. So Furby says, "My cats are my alibi. They're always watching me."
For sure.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see, and I think the pre-trial hearings are going to be. I hope they have the cameras in the courtrooms, because this is going to be battle royale, right? Because if they could get the cell phone data thrown out, then they only have to worry about the DNA at that part. And, or if they could prove that he's in another area, maybe that makes the DNA go away too. I don't know, but it's really interesting. I have a feeling, Mike, this case is going to end up in the Supreme Court eventually. I mean, with all this stuff going on, because apparently IGG, right, Investigative Genetic Genealogy, was involved in identifying Kohberger's dad, I believe, and then leading to him. So this is, Othram's involved. There's a lot of different working parts here that we don't know, and things have just been kind of leaked out. And this is going to be one of those cases, Mike, that eventually I think is going to end up in the big house.
I mean, if he's not guilty, yeah, of course, 100%. I mean, if he's guilty, hopefully they can prove it. I mean, they get I don't understand, like the DNA on the sheath in the house. That's pretty huge, right? I mean, unless they're implying that law enforcement planted it. I mean, how did that get there? How
Some
did
people have said that. Yeah. Some people have said that the law enforcement has planted it, and this is where the conspiracy theories are just, I've heard it all night long. I heard it all night long on the channel here in the comments.
That's interesting.
It's it's always something where you're just kind of like, you don't know the answer to, but people will put words in your mouth anyway. So it's just an interesting aspect of this, because the DNA, oh, stupid thing, this DNA on the sheath, right? Uh, how, and I've said this too, Mike. How can these four kids, in the manner in which they passed away, not have transfer evidence all over the suspect, right?
Yeah.
The foot impressions, and we saw how the crime scene. I mean, they didn't control the entry and exit way points, right? If you're telling me this much blood, they keep on talking about how much blood was in the crime scene, and you're
Yeah.
telling me that there's no foot wear impressions that were, traveling out the back door or the front door, whatever it may be, into the snow and carrying it into his car. And, and people say, well, there's no DNA was found in the car. As per the defense, I keep on trying to explain to people this. The defense has said there's no evidence in the car. All right.
Right.
Nobody else
Right.
has. This was
Right.
taken to an FBI facility. I'm assuming this was Stroudsburg. I'm assuming the nearest one is Philadelphia. That would be the likely scenario that this vehicle was taken down there. And I would imagine they took this thing apart all the way down to the metal frame.
Now, if they do have DNA, don't they have to share that with defense?
Yeah, with the discovery thing, and this has been an argument from the people who have supported the Bryan Kohberger camp. We're not seeing the discovery part in some of the things. Now,
Mm.
it depends on what the rules are for discovery in the state, like how long they get. I mean, New York shortened the discovery big time. But if you're watching Long Island serial killer case play out, this discovery thing has been going on a hell of a long time. And no way is it meeting the new standard. That's for sure.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I can't wait to see the trial and see how this thing unfolds.
Yeah, and there's so much that we don't know because of the gag order, but we want to be able to see exactly what the evidence really is on certain things because, we can think that we have the right suspect all you want, but if you can't prove it in court beyond the reasonable doubt, well, it doesn't really matter at this point.
Yeah, we've seen a few cases like that, right? Where we thought this is the person and, you couldn't prove it and they went free. So,
Yep. It's something that we're going to watch closely, but you have a situation where will the new alibi and will the new thing now push off because the trial was supposed to start soon. Now, does this push it off, because they had requested a speedy trial. Now, does this, push it off a little further? I don't know.
yeah.
And so Michelle says, the only time I ever turn off my phone is in church. Yeah, I don't even do that. I just put it on vibrate when I go, because it's just easy. Because you ever turn off your phone because it's not working right, and then you try to put it on again and it doesn't go on, and you get that kind of like, oh my God, my phone, I broke my phone.
Yeah.
That's why I don't do it. So Cakes Boo.
Cakes Boo.
Thank you. As retired law enforcement, how do you really feel about the way the crime scene was conducted initially? Awful is my word, Cakes Boo. Absolutely awful. And Mike and I will run down them quick because we have a few minutes left. Mike, oh, you know what? You want to start, Mike?
No, you go start. I'll piggyback.
Okay, so here's what I don't like, Cakes Boo, about the crime scene. First of all, there is somebody called the gatekeeper that the police put outside. Now, the gatekeeper was in a car. You have a log. There is a crime scene log. Every individual that enters that crime scene, their name, their rank, their department that they come from, has to be listed in that or listed on that log. And the part of the job of the gatekeeper is to ensure that people who enter that scene are listed on it. Now, do we know if this truly happened? Well, I could tell you this. There was no gatekeeper making sure because the gatekeeper was sitting in the vehicle outside when these people would walk in. I saw people walk in to that crime scene without wearing protective equipment, meaning booties, masks, and stuff. And then I've seen people leave with the booties and the mask and stuff like that, right? So that has to be answered out. I've seen people come all hours of the night taking out evidence. And here's the real big complaints. Giving back possessions of the victims to the families while the crime scene was still being processed.
Yeah.
Then, quote unquote, and to me, and I was on Chris Cuomo's show on News Nation, and the night that the day that happened, and I said to Chris Cuomo right then and there, as far as I'm concerned, the crime scene ended today. If you start giving back personal property in the midst of this, it's over, because anything you find out afterwards now, the defense is going to have a field day. It's as simple as that. Then, not too long after that, they brought in the cleaning crew. And the cleaning crew they put all the tarp up and they were ready to start, or they started, and all of a sudden they shut that down. And then days later, we see there's a black vehicle that shows up. There's a guy in a cowboy hat and everything else, and they go in and they take out more evidence after all of this stuff that's going on. So, and there's more. I don't want to, continue during this path, but handled badly is about the best word I can use on here. Mike?
It certainly makes the police department look incompetent, right? Like they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't think it out thoroughly, and then they said, "Oh, wait, let's do this." Oh no, we already did that. So yeah, gatekeep. Who knows what their procedure is? Who knows if they've trained their police officers, how to secure a crime scene? I mean, sadly in New York, we do so many thousands in a year, so we're pretty good at it. The gatekeeper is usually the first responding officer that sets up the crime scene and make sure that no one goes in there that doesn't belong in there. And there's not a lot of people that don't belong in there. I just want to explain, right? It should be the detective in charge, crime scene, and pretty much that's it. That's it. Yeah. And that's who goes in there. That's it. Nobody else, no chiefs, no captains,
politicians,
family members, nobody else, right? Max said something really good yesterday when I was watching your podcast, how she established an inner perimeter and an outer perimeter just for the nosy bodies, just to keep them out there, just to satisfy. Yeah. And it's kind of sad that we have to do that we have to create an extended perimeter just for the people that are so nosy. And there's a lot of them, and most of them are from the police department, or the press, right? So, crime scene preservation was definitely not established. Crime scene evidence collection was not followed properly, and I'm pretty sure the defense is going to poke a lot of holes into that.
Oh my God! It was a gift. The mattresses thrown in the back of a pickup truck. The chief driving a U-Haul, right, with stuff in it. I mean, like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And you know what, Mike? I understand. Yes, small department, don't have a lot of things, but the state investigators are there. The FBI is there. Someone should have stepped up and said, "Guys, no, we have to. There's a way of doing this." Carolyn, thank you for being a member for 2 months now. Love being a member. Love having you, Carolyn. Thank you very much. It's and this is what we talked about in the Kohberger story yesterday with Joe Scott Morgan and Cheryl McCollum, and people are saying we were one-sided. Like, what? We just scorched earth and destroyed how the crime scene was handled in the Bryan Kohberger case, and you're telling me that I was being biased and gaslighting? Get over it. I mean, what are you, crazy?
They only watch that segment that you were talking about. Or
they hear what they want to hear. So CHQ question, what impact would people being at the scene before law enforcement have? Big time, because you have what's called evidence dynamics. Things can change. People could kick things, step on things, move things, clean up things. There is plenty that could go wrong. And Mike and I have seen it, right? You can have a staged crime scene. You can have somebody trying to prove something that was there. So for instance, in a suicide case, right? Some of the family doesn't want the suicide to go down. So they clean up the scene. I mean, it happens. So and there's a long delay between when the estimated time of death is, or that postmortem interval, and when the police actually finally arrive. There are so many things wrong with the case. Then I think, slam dunk, not even close to being a slam dunk, this case. Absolutely not.
When we do our Night Watch episode, we could do a lot of crime scene stories where evidence were disturbed that we might have talked about, in our homicide course. There's so many. It's very revealing. That's why it was good that we did that. And
that's how you learn. But that's how cops learn. You learn from other people's mistakes. Renee, thank you very much for that, super Renee. I really appreciate that. But here's an example, right? I learned from the OJ case, and that was specifically as a supervisor in the squad. The thing I got out of that case was know where your people were, because you worry about the cross-contamination. So I was old school, Mike. I had that, that big flip charts that we used to have in
Yeah.
the supervisor room. And
Yep.
when we had a big crime scene, I would flip it open and I would put Detective Smith, Jones, and Mike here, and Bob, Sue, and Mary over here, because I want to know who was where. Because if I needed another person or we found an extended crime scene, I can't send any of those people. I need to send somebody else. So that's what I learned out of the OJ case. And I think if this case goes south, if Kohberger isn't convicted, and it's because of the crime scene, this will be taught in textbooks everywhere. It's as simple as that. And
Yeah,
even if it isn't,
I'm pretty sure squad guys still use the
the flip
chart,
chart.
to keep track. You have to. You have to.
Stacy Lott, 4-month member. Great show, guys. Thank you, Stacy. Like I said, I know people you're biased and you're setting this. I'm like, dude, apparently you didn't. I responded to all those people. I'm like, apparently you didn't even watch the show. It's as simple as.
I think what people don't realize, we both teach at John Jay, right? And I know Joe teaches the same way I teach. We're not 100% pro cop. We definitely, when we teach, we take it from both perspectives. We're fair and unbiased in that way. You have to sit in our classroom. My students probably don't even realize, is he pro cop or is he anti cop? Because I really talk about both sides, and I think that's important.
And I've actually said this publicly on TV. Listen, when the cops do a good job, I'll say it. And when the cops do a bad job, I'll say it. But we never seem to see that on the other side, right? We never, like when you have a perp who is a bad guy and he's always like, oh, this guy was always good. Yeah, it's not the case. But Jeff, thank you very much. Jeff just sent us a super, says with a question. Any chance the killer used a hammer end or butt end of the K-bar to knock the victims out before stabbing? Quieter murder could control the blood spray. Yeah, sure, Jeff. Anything's possible, right? So this whole knife thing, the K-bar thing, the clip, you saw Joe Scott Morgan actually had a K-bar with him in the show yesterday, and he showed where he believes that, and he believed also that touch DNA was found not on the strap itself, but on the inside of the button of the clip that holds the knife. And because of the evidence that was recovered, there was a Walmart receipt with a Dickies, I guess, label that believe that he had a one-piece suit on, so to speak.
Like a jumpsuit.
That's was Joe's assessment of this, and that's the reason why the knife wasn't attached to a belt, because there's no belt there. It's like a one-piece jumpsuit, and that's the reason why. So during the frenzy, this thing gets dropped, but they don't tell us the condition of the sheath. Where is it full of blood too? I mean, this is a really bloody scene, so we don't know that. And people are saying, well, there's no blood on it. Like, I don't know if there's any blood on it. Neither do you.
Yeah.
So it's just very poor. But yeah, Jeff, I think any way that he could try to have controlled these kids, especially the male, Ethan, I think that he would have done anything in his power to. And then people say, well, why didn't he kill the woman, the girl that was, that kind of saw him, like he walks by? He could have just been exhausted. And he could have been in a frenzy state of mind. I don't know. I mean, we don't know. The people ask some tough questions, and they're good questions, but we shall soon find out, because that's been a big contention in the pro Kohberger camp, right? Why didn't anybody call the police? Which brings me to the final point, Mike. We got about 2 minutes left. Destroying the crime scene. Destroying the crime scene. And I don't know if you caught what I said yesterday, but I said you eliminated, because this is a big contention of a lot of people. Like, how did the people on the first floor who weren't killed not hear the screams? Well, you could have brought the jury in, put them in the first floor, shut the door, gone up to the third floor, and screamed, and see if they could hear it.
Yeah. Now you'll never be able to experience that. The jury can't do a walkthrough. It's gone forever. So,
and there's a glove that Chris McDonough found. Yeah, there's a couple of other things that we need to examine in regards to all this stuff. There is the I believe it was Ethan, right? He was having a fight with this kid. I forgot his name, something Loach, maybe, whatever. There was some dispute with him going on. Yeah, there are a lot of red herrings in this case that needs to be examined, and the prosecution, for all intents and purposes, seems pretty confident during all this, right? I call them Burl Ives, for those old enough to remember Burl Ives. If you don't know who Burl Ives is, Google him and then look at the Latah County prosecutor. Oh, and that's the other complaint people get. That I was pronouncing their names, the victims' names wrong and the towns wrong. I'm sorry. I tell them, okay, come to Long Island. I'm going to give you 5 or 6 names. I want to see if you can pronounce them, all the Indian reservation names and stuff like that, and the town names, and see how good you are about pronunciation. It is what it is, folks. If that's your biggest complaint, that I don't pronounce things right, blame my Brooklyn accent. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh,
Next
man.
is Joe, you're breathing too heavily. I'm going to be getting that one next too.
Yeah, everybody's a critic. Everybody's a critic.
That's fine. I mean, listen, Mike. I like differing opinions, but when people start cursing at me in the middle of the thing, I just, I mean, it's it, or like, oh, you're bald. Really? Really? I was really observant of you. I'm like, that's the best you got. Anyway, Mike, final thoughts on the Kohberger thing?
It's definitely raised some doubt in some people, apparently.
Yeah, and it should.
Not me. I feel like it's a pretty good case. I mean, it's going to be a tough prosecution, especially if the defense challenges like everything done on the crime scene. So, and then of course taking down the house. So it's going to be a case study. When it all is said and done, this case will be a case study, a learning case study for a lot of investigative police departments out there.
I agree, and we're going to leave that with that great comment. Everybody, thank you. 250 plus watching this roll call live. Thank you very much for joining us. You guys have a great day. Mike, Simi Rope. Wait, you're bald? Thanks, guys, for joining us today. You guys enjoy the rest of the day. And tomorrow night, on Tuesday, tomorrow at 6 p.m., my 4th day in a row, I have Mark Safarik, who is the former supervisory special agent from the FBI who ran the behavioral analysis unit. You don't want to miss that show. That's going to be a good one. He's going to answer some of your questions and deflect some of the things that people say about BAU. So you guys, and I'm going to ask him about this Kohberger case and see if he wants to get involved with that. He usually doesn't. He doesn't do many interviews, so this is a good one. So, somebody asked for a story. Sinead asked for a story. Mike, do you have one?
Of course, we have time.
Okay. Yeah, I got plenty of time. I'm eating up your time.
I'm gonna do the egg yolk story that I proposed last week. This is just a crime scene. You guys ready?
Yeah,
all right.
We're ready.
So I was in night watch, which again is the squad for the overnights. We work from 11:30 or so to like 8 a.m. What great thing about night watch is you respond to crimes as they occur. Probably the best time in my life. Well, probably the second best time in my life as a detective. Anyway, we respond to a victim that was assaulted. Apparently, he got cracked in the head. He was walking down the street. He got cracked in the head with like a champagne bottle. And then the perp proceeded to gouge his eye out, right? Backstory, when we talked to witnesses and people around the area, apparently the victim burglarized somebody's house. That somebody's house was the mother of the perp that eventually caught up to him. This was in Spanish Harlem. So the guy runs up on him, cracks him in the head, gouges his eye out. He's alive. So now I got to go to the hospital. As you know, Joe, we have to respond and talk to the victim. This guy is in the OR, right? He's conscious. They probably say not likely, meaning he's not likely to die. But I still had to interview him. So as soon as the doctors had him stabilized, I had to have a conversation with him. And I asked the doctor, can I talk to him? I need Doc. I got to interview him. And doctors are usually pretty good. And I said, well, he's very traumatized, but you could try. And let me just tell you again, graphic warning, mute it, turn it off, whatever you got to do. I talked to this guy and he's laying on the bed. His eye is gouged out. His eye, it looks like a hard-boiled egg that you just ripped the top part off. And it's still rotating in the orbit. And as I'm trying to talk to this guy, blood spurting out. It's like a horror movie, and all he can say is my eye, and I'm like, dude, do you know who did this? There was nothing more he could do, but it looked like a cracked egg yolk, and it just rotate. That's it. That's my story. It was gross. I hope I didn't turn off a lot of people, but
No,
these are the
actually,
things that I see, that me and Joe have
Yeah.
seen, that we can't even share to others unless you ask for it.
well, you kept everyone's attention because the room still had 225 people.
Yes.
So they wanted to hear the end of that story.
I got
I'm
a
gonna have
whole
to-
library of stories.
No,
Me and Joe too.
I got some stuff too, but we're gonna save them for the Night Watch show. When we do that, we can talk and make sure that we don't have any kids in the room. So, listen, folks, you enjoy the day. Mike, hang out 1 second. Everybody, have a great day. We'll see you soon.